Everyone, in today's video, I want to show you exactly how quickly you can install Cortex on IIS. This has come up a couple times in conversations I've had recently. Basically, how long does it take to install Cortex? How long does it take to configure Cortex? And the answer is uh, as long as you do the prep work and have all your prerequisites in order, really not that long at all. So we're going to do that in this video. But before we get to that, I want to remind you all that every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, I run the Cortex users group, which is just a time that I have set aside where you can come ask me questions about Cortex, ask your peers about Cortex. You don't have to be running Cortex right now. You can be evaluating Cortex. Just maybe you just heard of Cortex. Maybe you just watched this video and want to know more about what Cortex is all about. Come to the users group and ask your peers, ask me. Lots of times I do demos of some of the stuff that I'm working on that'll come out in upcoming versions of Cortex. Um, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. There's links in the description to request an invite. So hopefully I'll see you there this Tuesday and of course into the future. So with that, let's get into installing Cortex using IIS. First, I want to call your attention to the documentation site. Uh, I spend quite a bit of time maintaining this site because I want it to be as up to date and accurate as possible. And that's what we'll be following today. Basically, we'll be running through this document, install it IIS, which if you go to the documentation site, which is linked down below, I'll actually have a link directly to the page that we're using in this video as well. But in all of the videos about Cortex, there's a link to the homepage of the documentation site. Click Get Started, and then under Install and Configure, install in IIS. There are other places you can install Cortex, but for the vast majority of you, IIS is the right place to go, primarily because that's the way that Cherwell was installed as well. I try to mimic how Cherwell was set up and configured as much as possible, as much as made sense to. Obviously, I'm using a little bit newer technologies, but using IIS felt like a natural equivalency. So with that, we're about 3 minutes in. So let's start the timer and see how quickly I can get this installed. I will mention that I've already done this prerequisite. I did restore a demo database to a SQL Server database. So this n minutes database over here is just the Cherwell demos are restored to a SQL Server in Azure. And yes, I will be showing SQL usernames and passwords. Don't worry, those will be disabled and deleted by the time this video gets posted. So not to worry. However, in this video, I am going to install this prerequisite um, because it's something that's tripped up many people over the last several weeks. And if I had a big neon sign to say, make sure you do this, this is where the neon sign would be. Make sure you do this. Make sure you install IIS with WebSockets. So we're going to go over to this VM. This is a brand new VM. I haven't done anything to it. Um, I just logged into it for the first time right before I started recording. Um, so who knows? This demo could go horribly wrong. But we're going to start with manage and add roles and features and click through a few of these screens that don't really provide much value. We're going to go down here to web server and select that. Yeah, that looks good. On to the next screen. Okay, now we get to pick which features we want to add. None of these we really care about, um, but it's either here or on the next screen. Yeah, it's on the next screen. Here we go. So under the web server role, we want to make sure that we select WebSocket protocol, and it is hiding under application development. Um, if you are running Cortex on the same machine that you had Cherwell running on, you should already have this checked. If you don't, you may have been experiencing other issues with Cherwell. But Cortex requires this WebSocket protocol in order to work. All the rest of the defaults are totally fine. So we'll just hit next, confirmation, cool. Yep, application development, WebSocket protocol, and install. All right. And 3 minutes in, and now we're starting to install IIS. Now, while that's running, I'm actually going to kind of get ahead of the game. We want to go over to the releases site, and we're going to download. Right now, the latest version is 160 Alpha 1. So we're actually going to go to that. I'm just going to copy the link directly to that, and we'll open that up in Edge on the server. You can tell this is a brand new VM because it's trying to ask me to do a bunch of stuff. I don't really care about any of this. Sure. Okay, finally. There we go. All right, and I will have to log in, see if I can remember my username and password. May have used a different email address. That's cool. And now the rest of the video will be me trying to log in. All right. Give me just a second to copy my password from my password manager. All right, there we go. Now we're in. Okay, I'm going to download uh, this one, the Win X64 version, because that's what we're running on. The biggest difference between, hopefully I didn't just cancel that. Okay. The biggest difference between these two is Net 7 requires .NET 7 to be installed on the machine. Um, and um, the Win X64 does not. And that, but I've noticed that it doesn't use .NET 7 anymore. It uses .NET 8. So we're going to use this Win X64 because it's actually named correctly. Let's go open that up. I'm going to copy all of the files into C Cortex. Just create a new folder there and copy all of those files. And then while that's going, we'll go back to the install, and it looks like it finished. Yeah, installation succeeded. Okay, so now we have IIS, it's installed, and we have WebSocket support, right? These files are copying in the background. We can actually close Edge at this point. And just to kind of ground ourselves in this document, let's look at where we are. Okay, so we've installed IIS with WebSocket support. We haven't installed this prerequisite. We did make sure WebSocket support was enabled, and we just did the download and install Cortex part. Um, so we're actually going to go back and copy this link, and we'll get that installed as well. So let's go back to Edge. Current .NET Core Hosting Bundle Installer. That's what you want. Yep. And it automatically downloads. And once it's downloaded, it's almost there. We'll just open the file. This is an actual installer. So you just click through a few screens and, well, I guess just one screen, and then it installs itself. And that's all you need to do with that. Uh, and again, that's this number one. So at this point, we have our Cherwell database restored to a SQL server. We have a Windows Server with IIS installed. We just installed this hosting bundle. I have this in multiple places because it does get missed. It's one of those little nuances that just kind of sneaks into the background. So it is mentioned in multiple places on this page, but we do have IIS installed with WebSocket support enabled. And I do have my SQL Server connection handy. We'll actually be clicking that link in just a minute to create the connection string. We downloaded and installed Cortex. It's in the process of being copied to that C Cortex directory. And next, we're going to configure an application in IIS. And I'll show you all of these steps rather than reading through them individually. All right, so go back over here. Oh, that's done. That's good. We can close all of this stuff. That's 43% complete. We'll go to the start menu and open up IIS Manager. So we'll drill down into the site, default website. We're going to add an application. The alias is going to be Cortex. Default app pool is totally fine. And the physical path of the files is C Cortex. I'm actually going to hold off. Well, I guess I can hit OK here. I'm going to hold off on hitting this OK button just because IIS is automatically going to try to spin up the application, and that might interrupt our copy here. So while that's going on, let's go back to the documentation and think about some of our configuration. Let's kind of plan while that other stuff is going on in the background. So we're going to need to set up our database connection, and that's via connection string. We're going to leave it unlicensed for the time being. We're basically setting up like a demo environment. And realistically, adding that information in is by far the simplest, least time consuming step of the entire setup if you're doing that. And then for authentication, for this video, we're going to leave it as none. I'll do a follow-up video with how quick it is to set up authentication, which is actually kind of a lie. Authentication is always the part that takes the longest amount of time because there are a couple different moving pieces that just have to line up just right. Having used Cherwell, you're a step ahead because Cortex is using the same Cherwell database. So if your SSO provider is configured to work with Cherwell, getting it to work with Cortex is going to be easy as well. But we'll run through some of these steps in this file here. So let's talk about a connection string. So the connection string is basically how the application, in this case Cortex, knows how to connect to SQL Server. And in Cherwell, that wizard, the connection wizard, is basically constructing a connection string. It just provides more of a point and click interface to it. Cortex, at least for right now, the way to configure it is typing some text into the configuration file. And it's basically following this format. So we have a server host name, uh, we have a username, we have a password, we have a name of a database, and then we'll use multiple active result sets true. And I'm actually going to add a couple other things. I don't know that I'll need them for my particular setup. This trust server certificate, um, just so that the video, um, you know, holds true to its name, so we don't have a bunch of troubleshooting to do. So I'm going to copy this, and at this point, we might be done over here. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to find a file called appsettings.json. We're going to open it with Notepad and connection strings default. That's where we're going to paste this. Now I mentioned the licensing information. So let's say when you purchased Cortex, you provided your company name as my company, and your license code is 12345 6. You would just type that in there, and it would uh, be accepted by the program. That's obviously not our licensing information, so we're just going to leave that blank. Authentication, we're going to specify as none for right now. Again, separate video on that. So let's fill in the blanks in this connection string. So our server is, and let me make sure I'm typing the right thing here. Um, we'll find the screen. There you go. So this is Cherwell archives dot database dot windows dot net. 1433 is the port that SQL Server tends to run on. My username is Cortex, and my password is super, super secure. And the database is n minutes. Multiple active result sets equals true. And like I said, I'm going to add this configuration setting, and I'm going to set it to true. So let's just copy this. Copy that. There we go. And then we'll save. At this point, I don't think I have to restart IIS, but well, I guess I should actually finish creating the application. There we have Cortex running. Um, the site is running. Let's just restart the server. Did it actually restart? I guess it restarted. Okay. And now let's open up Edge and go to localhost / Cortex. And then we dance because it's taking a while. But I think we can call it at this point 15 minutes to get Cortex installed. Um, and that's with a bunch of talking too. So you could probably do this in about 10 minutes. Uh, I don't know that I want to wait for this to load the whole time. Do you? If you don't want to wait, let's switch back to this camera. Um, I'll switch back when it finally loads. But in the meantime, reminder that there's an invite link to the Cortex users group down in the video description. There's a link to all sorts of good information on Cortex, the documentation, uh, the demo site that I usually demo from. Um, all sorts of good stuff down there. If you have questions, leave a comment down below in the comment section. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to do a lot more demos like this and of cool new features that I'm adding, because there are a lot of cool new features that are going to come out in 1.6, and there will probably be a 1.7 by the end of the year. And then after that, we're probably going to be on to 2.0 and onward. I've got some exciting things to eventually share about what will be there, but it'll kind of take on an additional life, and be a more of a thing, um, not necessarily a new thing, but more of a thing. Uh, and the reason I'm doing it as a 2.0 is to kind of uh, draw a line between what the 1.x series has been, and what I want to do into the future. Um, but that doesn't mean that 1.x is going away. 1.6 will still be around. 1.7 will still be around. Um, all of it will still be around. And you can certainly use that just as it is without going on to the 2.x versions. Um, I've been stalling for a bit. It's still not finished loading. Uh, to be fair, I didn't. Oh, and it heard me. Uh, so let's switch back. It just finished loading. Here we go. Uh, I'm logged in as CSD admin because I set the none authentication type, um, and we can see all of our business objects. This is a demo czar, so it's all the demo content, and it is unlicensed, so grids only show the first 10 records. Um, I was about to say before it loaded that I made this a severely underpowered machine. Realistically, Cortex doesn't need a whole lot of resources, but RAM helps, because there's just a lot of configuration that needs to be loaded into memory. Um, and I gave this machine like the absolute bare minimum I could. So yeah, there we go. In certainly less than 20 minutes, we have it all up and running and tested. But realistically, it was closer to about 15 to get it all installed and configured, not including authentication. Um, Authentication definitely can be super quick if you're all prepared and have all the information that you need, um, and it all lines up the first time. Uh, I've also had it take, an hour or two. Um, it's kind of the luck of the draw and how complicated your particular setup is. So I hope this was interesting. I hope you found this useful. I hope now that you can install Cortex in less than 15 minutes as well. Um, and if you want some help, obviously I can install Cortex in less than 15 minutes. I'm more than happy to help you do it as well. Um, you can schedule some time with me via the links down in the video description. Thanks for watching. I will see you later.